Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast NFL edition. We are back talking some NFL football. 2 weeks have concluded, and we are here with the producer and NFL expert, Mr. Justin Ackendale. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. It's still early in the season, still a long season. The grind's real. It's starting to become real.
And we also have some special guests with us on the NFL podcast, making their debuts on NFL podcast. We have the MMA expert, Mr. Chuck Marlowe. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing exceptional. How are you doing today, Martin?
I'm doing well. And then we also have the Dragonball expert with us, Mr. Mitch Oso. How are you doing today, sir?
You can call me Heath Slater. I got kids to feed with the Dragon Ball hiatus. That's why I'm showing up today on 20th.
Well, that is true, because without Dragon Ball, you really don't do much on the podcast. So you need to do something.
Just get my feet wet in another topic. That's all.
Oh, well, good for you. Good for you. Justin, man, you said it. The grind's real. We've got 2 games. There has been a lot that we've seen in these 2 games. So in week 2, go ahead, man. The floor is yours.
Yeah, man. The first game I want to talk about was this Dolphins Ravens game, because good God, it was absolutely insane. I mean, the Dolphins ended up winning that game 42-38. Ravens were up 35-14 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I mean, the Dolphins had no business winning this game. I mean, Lamar Jackson was in his bag. He was doing it. But the fourth quarter, Tua and the receivers for the Dolphins decided to go off, and Baltimore decided to stop covering them. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both had 11 catches, both over 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hill caught both of his touchdown passes in the fourth quarter. He caught one with like 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, which was like a normal, just like he just beat them all. They were like a couple yards behind them. But then there was a second one like 2 minutes later where like the Ravens just didn't cover him at all. I don't know what the fuck they were doing, but they just let that man run through and just let him score. And it was crazy. Dolphins scored 28 points in the fourth quarter. 28 points. It was crazy. Definitely Tua's coming out party. 4 touchdowns in the fourth, 6 total. It was just a crazy game, man.
It was his best game of his NFL career. Chuck, what did you think about that Dolphins comeback against the Ravens?
Shit looked like high school football. Motherfuckers came down. They were down bad. And you just get like a halftime pep talk. Fourth quarter comes. You think the game's over. Because at that point, I had turned the game off. I switched over. And I was just like, all right, this game's over. Look back, I see you on NFL Red Zone, touchdown after touchdown. I'm like, okay, shit, it's a game. Flip back. I'm sitting there watching it locked in. Defense for the Ravens just crumbled in the fourth. If you see shit like that, that means they're usually not going to be too good in the playoffs. You're crumbling like that in that second half, and you're letting up 28 points in the fourth. That's not good. Dolphins last year came back after having a terrible start to the season. So to see them be able to come back in the fourth shows that they definitely have a little bit of life. Offense is starting to click there. You have 2 speedy receivers in Hill and Waddle, and that speed, no one can contend that because you have to play help on either side. So,
I agree. Mitch, you've been vocal about not believing in Tua past year or so. What did that game? Has that game changed your mind? You still don't believe in him, or you need to see more?
Well, I do like to always see more than one example, but I mean, some of those, the long touchdown passes, there were some, bombs in which he threw. There was I can't remember if it was the Waddle or if it was Hill. I think it was Hill on one of those deep balls. He did like throw the ball a little short. Maybe hardly. Like Hill hardly had to stop to catch that ball right on the goal line to score that touchdown. So I mean, I think Tua showed me something that he can at least chuck the ball further than what we were anticipating. I also had to remind myself that man did come off of like a major hip injury, and like the hips are like the most like important fundamental function of a quarterback. So I mean, I gotta give them a little more props than what I have done in the past. Justin and Chuck, let me ask you a quick question about that game though. With Duvernay appearing to be more and more of a star, with him exiting with that concussion, if he stayed, do you think that's a different outcome of that game? Or
I don't know. So Duvernay makes a big impact, especially coming out of the slot. And so that eats up a lot of the inside and it creates things on the outside for a lot of the outside receivers. So I think it does hurt there. But I mean, Lamar was in his bag. Like he literally carried the team there. And I don't think anyone else really played up a big role. So I'd say, yeah. Besides Bateman's long catch and Mark Andrews getting 100 yards as well, there wasn't really anyone else who stepped up on the offense, especially running back wise.
Yeah, I agree with Chuck there. I don't think Duvernay leaving had anything to do with them not being able to do anything in the fourth quarter. I think it's mainly they're missing J.K. Dobbins. I mean, other than Lamar Jackson getting 119 yards rushing, the rest of the Ravens had 36 yards rushing. So I think they're really missing J.K. Dobbins. They need to get their running game back going. I think the Ravens are still going to be fine. Like, this game is like a one-off game. Like, the Ravens aren't going to blow another lead like that again this season, in my opinion. So I think the Ravens will end up being fine, but it was just wild to see that the Dolphins just started chucking the ball deep like that and scoring at will. And it's just surprising that the Ravens couldn't put the game away. I mean, they were bad on third down the entire game. They were 3 for 10 on third downs, 1 for 3 on fourth down. They fumbled a 4th and goal in the first quarter, which really messed them up. I feel like if they would have got that touchdown after Duvernay got the kickoff return, it would have been just too much of a lead for Miami to even think about coming back from.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the Dolphins more in the previews, the big games we're going to preview this week. And Justin listed it out. Baltimore's next 4 weeks is at New England, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and at the New York Giants. Justin, you said you see it for sure out of those games. Buffalo would be the one that they would lose in your mind, for sure.
Yeah, and it's the NFL, so anyone can win on any given Sunday. But like out of those 4 games, like that game, there's not many paths to Baltimore win that game, especially if they're going to play defense like that.
I would say too, well, it depends on what this next game that we're going to talk about too. The Bengals.
Hold on. I mean, for 3 quarters, Baltimore had the niggas. They just didn't finish the game. Like, Miami has no business winning that game. They turned the ball over more. They because Tua had 2 picks, bad picks at that. They turned the ball over more. They had more penalties. Like, it wasn't a great executed performance start to finish. It just went off in the fourth quarter and Baltimore collapsed.
Well, like Chuck said,
it was the Madden cheese. You know how like I'll be up in Madden, you see me up 28-3, and then out of nowhere in the fourth quarter, motherfuckers just start breaking loose. Just breaking loose 100 yards here, 100 yards there. You're not going to see that too often. It's just some cheese. So I think they got cheese there in the end, gassed out.
NFL, anything can happen. Let's go to the next game, which this is going to be insufferable because we actually have 2 Cowboy fans on the podcast right now. Bengals at the Cowboys. You want to talk about someone who had no business winning this game? The Dallas Cowboys had no business, let alone winning. But being in this game, they jumped out to an early lead. Bengals came back again. Cowboys win it late. I'm just going to have the Cowboy fans. Go ahead, Justin, Chuck, have your moment and hear it.
Nothing really too much to celebrate. I mean, the only big takeaway I can take from the first 2 weeks and then this game on Sunday is I think the Cowboys have a legit defense that might be able to keep us above water until Dak comes back. That's the main takeaway that I've gotten from the past 2 weeks. And the Bengals,
I can agree 100%.
And the Bengals still can't block nothing. I mean, the Bengals spent $74 million this offseason for 3 new linemen and still can't block. They gave up 13 sacks in 2 games, and Burrow has been sacked 83 times since the beginning of last season. The second most 3 players has 49 sacks. It's just crazy. Like, Bengals definitely should have won that game. I mean, not by the way they played, just on paper, like you would have thought. No Dak, oh, the Bengals just want to run up here and light us up, and they didn't do it. I mean, Michael Parsons was in his bag once again, 2 sacks, 5 hits on the quarterback. The defense ended up hitting Burrow 9 times in addition to the sacks. It was just a great defensive performance. And then Cooper Rush had the 3 drives, first 2 at the beginning of the game, and the last one to end. That's all you really needed him to do.
Chuck, you got anything else you want to add on the Cowboys win?
No, I'm in full agreement with Justin. We have no business winning. We don't have Dak. We don't have any receivers. We have no rushing game right now. Offensively, we look piss poor. Probably the poorest offense in the NFL right now, honestly, if I'm being honest. Cooper Rush did his thing. He game managed. He did what a game managing quarterback should do. Threw about 60% on 235, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Hold on to the ball, no turnovers. That's how you win games. Like you said, the Bengals offensive line, they took La'el Collins from us. They paid a bag to La'el Collins, and they're still getting sacked. One thing I did want to highlight is Trayvon Diggs is looking a lot better in coverage than the last season. I think he heard the talk of letting up so many yards here and there, fading too much, and now he's closing the distance a little bit better. And I think he polished up some of his games. So I think we have a real serious secondary right there in the corner. If we have a corner that can actually play shutdown defense, that'll be huge. Because letting up those big plays last year is what really cost us a lot of those games.
Mitch, just like Justin, you're in the south of Ohio, Cincinnati-ish area. So from the Cincinnati perspective, how do you feel about, like Justin said, the Bengals paying all that money, and the offensive line so far has shown no signs of improvement for the Bengals?
Well, I mean, the Bengals are, they're eating the food that they made, and that is, they draft, like they went and drafted Jamar Chase instead of taking offensive linemen, and offensively they got the stud weapons all around, but they can't figure out anything with the line. And it's funny, I saw a stat. I don't know if this was true or if this was just a funny thing, but like they're on pace to give up the most sacks in a season ever. I think if I pulled out the calculator there, I think it was like they're on pace right now for 110 sacks by the end of the year, and like the 86 Eagles had like 104. So I mean, I don't think any other team right now is on pace for. I'd almost want to say 3/4 of that. I don't think anyone's on pace for 50 or 60 sacks. I could be completely butchering that, because like the AFC North, the 3 teams combined, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore, they've given up 8 sacks in 2 games altogether. And we're talking, Joe Burrow's going to die. He's going to have his other ACL torn, and it's just bad that like do they make the playoffs?
I want to save that for after we do the Raiders things, because both teams are in a similar, they're in trouble. Just from a stat and history perspective. But you brought up that Joe's going to die. He has a different personality than the person I'm going to name, but it's looking eerily similar. Are we going to have another Andrew Luck situation?
I don't think so. I mean, with all that being said of how bad we said their line is right now, I don't think they're going to end the season like that. They just paid too much money for all those linemen, and then like offensive line, it takes time to gel. You got to be a unit, and like adding those new pieces, they're just not gelling yet. So like you still got to give it a couple more weeks, but if it doesn't like turn around, the Bengals are done.
Mitch?
I just, the thing too is, and this might have absolutely no importance to anyone who has a brain, but like Indy is like right up the street from Cincinnati here. It's only an hour and a half drive. So like this organization is really familiar with Indy, and how, I mean, they literally see each other, every Sunday per se, as they drive past each other. Like they have to know the Andrew Luck history there, and then hope that, they don't even begin to play with that idea with Burrow. I don't think Burrow would, especially since he's like, he's like a homegrown kind of guy. I think that he would try to grind it out as much as possible, like here. But I don't suspect an Andrew Luck scenario. But
Joe Shiesty built different.
yeah,
Fair enough.
I agree with that.
Fair enough. I would say from a mental thing, but even from just think about the hits that Andrew was taking. And let's just be clear: if Andrew Luck was still in the league, the AFC would be pretty different. Like, let's be honest, he had no offensive line, and he was the next person up, and he was going against AFC Championship games against the Patriots and Tom Brady, and he's bigger and stronger than Joe Burrow, and he was getting shellacked, and he was just like, enough's enough. If Irsay's not going to pay for the line, I'm out of here. And you don't want something like that happening to Joe, like you said, Mitch. Like, if he gets a catastrophic injury from keep getting smacked like this, it's going to set the Bengals back years.
Yep.
Because once he gets his big contract and they don't win, that window is closed.
Oh yeah. Yep. They're going to have to draft and just pray to God that they can get cheap linemen that turn out to be, Pro Bowlers. So good luck with that. But
and Justin, you had their next four games. Well, besides the Giants, that's the Jets, right? The Jets.
Yeah, that's the Jets. But shit, the Jets just beat the Browns on bullshit, by the way. But they still beat them. Like
2 touchdowns in 80 seconds.
Yeah, any game is Sunday. You know this.
Yeah. So, but you got your at Jets. Then you got Miami, Baltimore, and New Orleans. And New Orleans has a defense. Miami, the Bengals can't piss around.
No, they cannot. They have to get this line together. I mean, the Jets is a good get back spot for that, but yeah, if they do not get together, I mean, looking at top 15 pick at this point. I mean, it's bad.
Before we move off this game, because the Raiders are up next, Justin and Chuck, the running back situation. Each week it's looking imminent that Zeke is just not who he used to be. And with Pollard, you guys have that good running thing, but I know Zeke is paid $95 million. But should he be the one coming off the bench and Tony's starting?
I really don't think it matters because they I think Tony outsnapped them last game. So as long as
in terms of carries, Zeke had 15 to Tony's 9. Yards was 53 to 43, but passing game, Pollard had 4 receptions. Zeke's 1.
Yeah, so
just for Zeke had 7 targets out of the backfield too.
Yeah, so Zeke had a couple more. Yeah, so you say he had 7 targets. Tony had.
They both had 16 touches, pretty much.
But how many passing targets did Tony Pollard had?
He had 7 targets.
All right, so he got 7 targets. So he's getting that's slightly more work than what Zeke's getting. So I don't think you necessarily have to have Zeke coming off the bench because Tony Pollard, like his skill set, is to change the pace back. He's going to get the explosive plays. He's going to come in and catch the ball. So I think the role's fine, but as long as Tony Pollard is getting more total work than Zeke, then who gives a fuck who starts, honestly.
Would you ask Zeke to restructure his contract? I'm not paying someone $95 million who can't do anything.
I think it's the last year of his deal. Or
that's also true. So what are you going to do?
Oh, shit, cut him, or he'll take a discount.
Would you be okay with him walking?
Yes.
With Pollard there, yeah.
Okay. Man, someone be on the lookout. Zeke might be a free agent. You want to talk about crazy week 2s? We still have this one. Cardinals at the Raiders. Justin,
for you. Put this in for you. You can do the recap.
It's not. I'll make it short as possible because I want to get to these previews. The Raiders were up the entire game. And then they get outscored 29-3. Rest of the game, it was one of those things where Kyler Murray, who last week, as Mitch, for the people listening to, Mitch thinks the Cardinals are terrible. They got shellacked by the Chiefs. And Kyler Murray brings them back with one of the craziest 2-point conversion passes and throws to a former Bengal, AJ Green. They go into overtime. Hunter Renfrow fumbles twice. The first one they recover. The second one, they run it back, touchdown, game over. Raiders are 0-2. Cardinals are 1-1. Mitch, I'm actually going to throw this to you too, because for the listeners, Mitch, you were pretty high on this Raiders team when they got Devontae and their weapons and all of that. Now they're 0-2. So go ahead.
I don't understand how they have seemingly regressed, because that team really has not changed too much. It's only just been the addition of Devontae Adams. So the team has, paper-wise, only gotten better and never dipped in any other category. But they are just absolutely clueless. At the beginning, like if you were to ask me prior to the season starting, my AFC West rankings, and I look more and more stupid as the weeks go by. But so history said, so I would have put probably Chargers 1. I would have put Vegas 2, Kansas City 3, and Denver 4. And let me tell you, that is the exact opposite as what. And Justin, you have every right to laugh, because every listener here knows why I'm not on these podcasts too much, because I am no expert apparently in the AFC.
Before you keep going, why would you think that the Raiders will be better than the Chiefs?
I held Tyreek in such a high regard that I just thought that everyone, like Patrick Mahomes, would have no ability to, or not ability. I didn't think Patrick could find anyone to catch the ball, and that Travis Kelce would be blocked all the time. So I thought defenses would just focus on them, but I don't think highly of Juju. So I thought he'd be negated by every defense, and that Patrick would have to do everything by himself. So, but I'm completely wrong on that.
Yeah, watching the Chiefs these past couple of weeks, like it's just made me respect Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes so much. I feel like in seasons past, like when the Chiefs were lighting the world on fire, like they were using Tyreek Hill as a crutch. They always went deep to him all the time. Similar to last night, how Kirk Cousins just kept trying to force feed Justin Jefferson, and it just wasn't fucking working. Patrick Mahomes is such a good quarterback that he doesn't need to be force feeding the ball to anyone. He can just pencil in, pepper it around, and dink and dunk it, and spread the ball out more, and it'll just open things up more because he's just that good.
So with that, like going, they're like trying to retract back to like where all this connection was. So like, yeah, I held the Raiders in such high regard. I thought they were just going to be sweet, and and I thought Arizona was just hot garbage. But nope, Arizona wants to dick around and get beat up by the Chiefs, make the Chiefs look really good against me, and then they want to go and beat Vegas. So I'm not a happy camper. I'm not knowledgeable on shit.
Chuck, do you have anything you want to say about this game before I have some other things I want to add about this?
Kyler Murray just being Kyler Murray, not knowing the playbook, not knowing the defense, running around, being able to buy time pretty much, getting by, running around in circles, just juking out defensive tackle. That's literally all he's doing, is just running in circles and juking people out. It works for now, but when it comes playoffs, like you guys said, will it really work? And I can see why they put that fucking clause in now. I'm really seeing that clause, and I'm regretting drafting Kyler Murray right now because he just looks like an idiot running in circles.
That play will not work against a Buffalo. I don't think it's working against the Chargers. You
got Von Miller coming after you. You're not juking out.
Nope. So
Von's gonna dip low and get your ass. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So the reason we're even talking about this is more about the Raiders, because of the people who listen to the L7C podcast. The Cardinals are a team I actually don't like talking about on here, because we have fallen into the trap past couple of years where the Cardinals are like 8-0 the first half of the year, and then they dip, and then they get smacked in the playoffs. There was one podcast where we were chanting for Kyler Murray to be MVP when he threw the Hail Murray to DeAndre Hopkins, who they're still waiting for him to come back. So with the Raiders, and this is also going to connect to Chuck's UFC thing, because Chuck, you remember that UFC cast where Dana White said that he was orchestrating whatever, whoever knows if he's capping or not, to get Tom to go to Oakland, him and Gronk. So that connected to Tom Brady when he said, "Oh, you're going to keep this motherfucker over me?" We all thought it was Jimmy G. Apparently it was Derek Carr, who I actually like Derek Carr, but these past 2 games have just been atrocious. And the stat I really wanted to throw out, because Justin said not to overreact because it's the first 2 weeks. The NFL is not the NBA. So since the 1970 merger, there have been 400 teams to start the NFL season 0-2. Do you want to know what percent have made the playoffs in all NFL history?
Like less than 30%.
Okay, less than 30. Mitch?
All right, so started off 0-2 and made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. What percent NFL history?
I'll get specific just because 43%.
Okay, so we got 30, 43. Chuck?
I'm gonna go 22%.
Yeah. Chuck was actually the closest. It's 9.5%.
Geez, I was going to go lower, but I didn't think it would be that low.
That's why I said you can't not over.
Damn.
There's no overreacting. That's why when you said don't
Crazy.
overreact, like, no, this is the NFL. Like, if you go 0-2, that's bad. Only 38 teams in history since the 1970 merger who started 0-2 have made the playoffs. The last 2 were in 2018. Texans started 0-2, made the playoffs, got destroyed. And then the Seahawks started 0-2, and then they went 10-6. Both lost in the first round. But since then, 2017s have gone 0-2 to start the season. None of them have reached the playoffs. Only the Dolphins in 2020, 10-6, and the Colts in 2021 have had winning records.
Here,
Going 0-2 is bad in the NFL.
Here, let me ask you, or let me go off that. So here are the 0-2 teams. Tell me playoff or not playoff.
Oh, I'm all for it.
Cincinnati.
Playoff. Their division. I mean, Steelers.
Justin didn't even have Cincinnati in the playoffs.
Now
Ravens.
No,
you did. You had
I
a fifth
did.
seed. You have fifth seed.
Now remember, the rest of the AFC North is 1-1 right now. So, but
I don't think the Bengals are going to make it.
okay. Next one. This one's going to get tweaked a little bit, but Tennessee will start.
No, they
Nope.
won't make the playoffs.
Nope.
They're done.
No.
Their season's
No.
over.
Tennessee, nope. Now I'm going to 2 honorable mentions because there's been 2 games and they still don't have a win, but they have a tie. Houston and the Colts.
They both won't make the playoffs.
No. Houston, no. Colts maybe can pull it around.
No, the Colts will not make the playoffs.
Colts are done.
Well,
I can't believe I'm going to say it, but Justin was right. The Jaguars are going to make the playoffs.
told ya.
They're going to win that division.
I told you.
That shit's good. And then the Raiders.
They won't make the playoffs. They're
No.
done.
No.
Atlanta.
No.
Carolina.
No.
No.
There you go. So then those are all the teams that have not won.
But after hearing all those 0-2 teams, the Bengals had the best shot to
Yes.
make the playoffs out of all of them.
Yes, they do have the best shot. And with the stats too, why I think is just so crazy is because something, Justin, we've said on the past podcast, Mitch, you and I have talked about, this AFC, there's no room for error.
No.
There's no room. That's
Well,
why
when you think about the AFC North, you got to think the Browns. They don't get Deshaun Watson back until late, so they're skimming by. They just lost to the Jets, so they're most likely going to lose a lot more games than win. Steelers, they're still struggling with quarterbacks right now and trying to get things to gel.
Yeah, but Steelers already have a win against the Bengals. That's bad.
I think in the North, Baltimore's the only threat to Cincy because, like what Chuck said, and I think you guys could confirm though with Cleveland, Deshaun is not allowed even in the facilities.
No.
So not until like week 13? Is that it when he comes back?
When he plays the Texans.
Yeah. So, like, that's week 13. So, like, Deshaun's going to come back, and then he's going to be thrust into that starting role. And I'm not denying his talent, but the fact of the matter is the guy hasn't played in how many years? It will be almost 2, 3. He didn't play all of last season, and, like, that's a long time to be away from the game and then not be able to mesh with this team for, like, basically your entire time there. So,
But Justin's right. The Bengals have the best chance to do it. Like, they're talented enough. They get on a run. It's great.
Bengals could sneak into the 7th seed.
They could, because now there's 7 teams, because obviously those stats, there was only like 6 until recently. But the Bengals and Raiders, Justin, you can't say that week 3 is not must wins.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that about them. I told you not to overreact off, like, like the Saints and shit losing, or like the Vikings losing, like those type of overreactions. Not the teams that are 0-2. I totally get when you're 0-2 in the NFL, you were absolutely in trouble. That's why I was so nervous about the Cowboys game, because if the Cowboys would have lost that game against the Bengals, we would have been fucked. Like, it would have been over, because we don't have our starting quarterback. So yeah, it would have been bad.
It would have been over too. Like,
even Baltimore losing, like, that game was just complete bullshit. Like,
and also, man, a team that we had in the playoffs from our prediction thing, the Broncos look terrible.
Oh, the Broncos look fucking awful.
They get to the red zone and can't score. Like, it's looking bad for them. Like Mitch said about thinking about the AFC West, it might just be the Chiefs and Chargers who make it.
It's like, I know, like, Denver is ahead of the Raiders in the standings, just through 2 weeks. But I'm still not convinced that the Raiders are worse than Denver. Denver looks like hot shit.
It's just their coach is kind of a hack. Like, watching that Monday night game against Seattle, like, it was, I watched the whole game. It was just so weird how, like, they did not snap the ball before, like, a second was left on that play clock every single time.
Peyton Manning called 62 timeouts.
Yeah. And then at home this week against the Texans, like, the same shit was happening so bad that the Broncos fans are counting down the play clock so they don't fuck up and get a delay of game. Like, it's one thing when that's Seattle, Russell Wilson coming back. That crowd was hot. Like, you could hear it through the TV. But not in Denver. Like, yeah, that coach is fumbling it.
Should Russell Wilson take more of a leadership role? Because, like, I mean, it is Russ. Like, I
think that's the problem. You're colliding on who takes that role.
I mean, has Russ earned? You would think, like, if that was in Brady, if Brady was in Denver, like, that timeout would have been called instantly, and he would have taken that. But Brady has earned that. Like, don't we think that Russ has earned that? Like, is he, like, has he earned that right? Like, to handle the game if he needs to, per se.
Yeah, but that Nathaniel Hackett, he's calling his plays, I believe. He's calling his plays, so the dude still has to, like, call the plays for him.
Yeah, he's calling the plays because he was the offensive coordinator for Green Bay, who, I mean, obviously they had Aaron Rodgers and all that stuff. And the thing with the coaches is they signed Russell for a long-term deal, so he's going to be there in the long run. Hackett could be gone by the end of next year.
Yeah, they already decided it's Russ over Hackett anyway. So Russ could call a shot if he really wanted to. And it might come to that after these 2 performances.
Because they are looking bad. Really, really bad. Chuck, did you want to say anything else about these 0-2 teams or whatnot before we go to the big game previews?
No, that was all.
All right. So, Justin, when we were talking about setting this up and why I thought the Dolphins, that game was so important that they had to win, is because of this game. They are playing the Bills, week 3. Both are undefeated. Mitch, Chuck, I know you guys have also seen the Bills, and so has Justin and I. Currently, they have beat the dog shit out of the Super Bowl champions and the former number 1 seeds of the AFC, the Tennessee Titans. They currently are looking like a team not to be messed with. Justin, this is the biggest game of the week for me. What are you thinking?
Definitely the biggest game in the NFL. It's going to be on, I think, CBS. Their main game on Sunday is Colts Chiefs. So most of the country is going to have to watch that bullshit, unfortunately. But yeah, the Bills have beat the Dolphins the past 6 games. The Dolphins have not beaten the Bills since 2018. Since 2018, the Bills are 2-0 right now. They have outscored their opponents 72-17. And that was like Martin just said, the defending Super Bowl champs and the AFC number 1 seed last year. Dolphins are 2-0. They beat the Patriots week 1, and then the comeback that we talked about earlier. Bills are ranked number 1 in total DVOA, and DVOA is the stat they use on Football Outsiders, the analytics site that I use. Dolphins are ranked first in offensive DVOA because of that comeback against Baltimore, and the Bills are ranked first in defensive DVOA because they've just been destroying everyone, not letting teams score. We'll see how Miami's able to block the Bills on front floor. The Bills have 9 sacks in 2 games, and Miami only has 2. Miami was thoroughly outplayed, and they were outplayed in the game against Baltimore, except for the 4th quarter. So I just want to see how Miami fares against them. I think the Bills remind Miami who they are. I think Miami got their biggest win last week, probably in years. Probably in years. They're going to be riding high off that. I think the Bills come in down to Florida and really put it on them, because if the Miami plays the way they did in the first 3 quarters that they did against Baltimore, Buffalo going to drop 45 on them. It's going to be 45-7 by the beginning of the 3rd quarter, and the Bills aren't going to let Miami score 20 points in the 4th quarter. So I think the Bills take this one. But if Miami does come out and at least have a good showing or end up winning, they're definitely going to be for real in the AFC.
Chuck, who do you have winning this game and why?
So some things I want to highlight on. So Bills secondary is banged up right now. I think it was Poyer or Hyde who got hurt in the end of that game. And then you had Dane Jackson, I think, who ended up having to go to the hospital for that freak play that happened. So take a look at that. You have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. You're missing safety and corner help over top. So that's going to be really huge, because those are 2 huge players who usually help with covering over top and getting interceptions and turnovers from that way. And then the thing I also want to talk about is Cincinnati, they're 0-2, and then the Titans, they're both 0-2. So the teams that they're beating, I mean, they're not off to a great start, and they're not looking like great teams. So I don't want to get into the hype train of the Bills just yet. And the way that Tua and them came back, I'm just going to ride with a little bit of Miami Heat right now. And I'm going to go with the Dolphins on this one.
Mitch, who do you have winning this game and why?
Oh, I'm picking the Bills. I think the Bills are just the absolute, most complete team, in the NFL. I mean, you saw what Diggs did on Monday night. It's not surprising that Diggs did that, but it's still shock and awe that he even did that. And that defense is stellar. I mean, when you shut down the Rams offense, now granted, Cooper Kupp still did his thing. He still had 100 yards receiving. So could I anticipate, whether Waddle or Hill could do that? I believe so. But they just have explosive nature to themselves that I think that Tua is going to struggle. But could Tua respond to that pressure any better than what Stafford could? I don't believe so. So I think Buffalo will. I think they'll pull out ahead, and they're just a juggernaut.
Yeah, I have Buffalo winning this game as well. But like Justin said, if Miami wins, things change.
Oh, yeah.
Their narrative is really going to be oh, last week wasn't a fluke. They just beat the currently unstoppable Bills. Justin, could you believe people are already going to Vegas thinking the Bills are going to go undefeated this year?
Oh, I don't know if they're going to go undefeated now.
But people are trying to go to Vegas.
Man, I don't know if they're going to go undefeated, but they are a really good football team right now. And Chuck did mention the injuries in the Bills secondary, but I don't see Miami stopping the Bills at all. So if it ends up being a shootout, I like the Bills in a shootout more than I like the Dolphins. And if it's like a lower scoring game, I like the Bills in a defensive battle more than I like the Dolphins in a defensive battle. Sean McDermott, the Bills head coach, runs that defense, and they were good last year, and they're off to a hot start this year. The Bills beat the Rams first. You messed that up, Chuck. You said the Bengals, but the Bills beat the Rams.
Yeah, they did.
Who are going to turn around. They didn't look too good. I mean, they got up against Atlanta, but they kind of were letting them come back. And the Titans, we all know how I feel about the Titans. I think they suck. So good point.
You know, the thing with Buffalo is if you look at their next 4 games, right? 3 of them are on the road, and those games are obviously the one against Miami this week. The week following that is at Baltimore, and then they're at home versus Pittsburgh, and then they're at Kansas City. So I guess we'll find out real quick if they're going to go undefeated or not, because that is a tough 3 out of 4 game slate there.
Yeah, that stretch right there. I don't think they go undefeated. Yeah, I don't think they go undefeated during that stretch.
I mean, they're all 3 of those are away. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
But let's go to the next game that we had highlighted. For Packers and Bucs. So obviously we got goats going against goats. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Justin, this was one of the things that me and you argued about getting the NFC playoffs. I had the Bucs in, you had the Cowboys. Early right now, the Bucs defense, they're not to be messed with at all.
I faded the Bucs like an idiot, bro. That was so dumb of me. That was so dumb of me. Like, I was right that like the offense was going to be like a little shaky, but I didn't expect the defense to be like this. Like, the defense is legit. Like, defense is as good as ever. Packers Bucs won the last 2 meetings, 2020 NFC Championship game, and then the Bucs beat them earlier in that regular season. Bucs are 2-0 this year with wins over the Cowboys and Saints. Packers got on dress week 1 against the Vikings, but then they bounced back against a Bears offense that can't move the ball at all. Both teams are struggling on offense. Bucs scored 39 points in 2 games, and the Packers have only scored 34 in 2 games. We already know the Packers don't have receivers. All the Bucs receivers are either hurt or suspended. Mike Evans. About Mike Evans, man. he a real nigga. He a real nigga for coming off that bench. I know it's on site with Lattimore. I feel like if it was anyone other than Lattimore who was like in the middle causing like bullshit, he would have stayed like on the sideline. But since it was like Lattimore, it was on site. But like I said earlier, when I said the Bucs wouldn't make the playoffs, I totally underestimated their defense. Like, their defense is solid. Against the Cowboys, the Bucs were moving the ball against us, but they just couldn't score in the red zone. So like that gives me like a little bit of pause for a little bit of concern. But I don't think the Packers are going to be able to get the running game going to beat the Buccaneers, because they're going to have to get the running game going to put up any type of points against their own defense, and the Bucs really don't give up any rush yards. It's going to be a real snoozer of a game. It's going to be low scoring. I like the Bucs. I really like the Bucs to win if they can get one of those receivers back, either Godwin or Julio. But yeah, I think the Bucs win this game. Defensive game, 20-17 type game.
Mitch, who you got winning this one?
I'm picking Tampa. I am with Justin that I think it'll be a low-scoring game, and I think it'll be more probably run-oriented, at least on Tampa's side, because with Evans out, and let's say even Godwin doesn't play, and Julio does. Like, Julio being your number 1 receiver sounds like a fantastic 2012, but unfortunately it's 2022. And Russell Gage, would be your second guy, I think. But Leonard Fournette, he came out on Twitter and he's telling fantasy owners, don't you worry, touchdowns are coming. And we saw what David Montgomery was just doing last week to Green Bay there. So I mean, I would think that Fournette would, he would just eat up, and quarterback play is the exact. I mean, I put him on in terms of like this game. If Brady's going to do well, then Rodgers will do well, and vice versa. I don't think it'll be a one-sided ordeal. But yeah, I think low scoring, run heavy, and I think the Tampa's defense is better than Green Bay, so I give them the edge.
Chuck?
I'm going to have to go with Tampa on this one. I can't bet against Tom. I know Tom's going through a lot this season, just struggling right now, getting everything gelling there. Pass-wise, if you can get some healthy receivers, I know that will definitely help. But yeah, like they said, defensive game, I really don't see anyone stopping Devin White just right now. I think him just on the run defense, I think he has that defense on lock right now, the way he's like calling it and everything. So I think that's pretty good for him. And I just think that Tom is just going to pull it out because I think he's a better quarterback in this situation. And if it comes down to a last minute drive, I'm not going to bet against Tom with the ball in his hand.
Is it at Tampa, Justin?
Crap, I had it pulled up. Yeah, it's at home for them. Because then they follow up the next week against the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Bucs won't. The Bucs won't. They won't lose. They'll beat the Packers. All right. Closing off, let's go to some quick hits. We had the Trey Lance injury. Justin, there's been people who have said, obviously, they feel bad for Trey because, he got the starting job and then he gets hurt like this. But then they were talking about the 49ers already know what they have with Jimmy G, and what they have with Jimmy G is they get to NFC championship games. And this roster is good.
Yeah, it's definitely good. I feel sick for Trey Lance. Like, he Dak Prescott himself. Like, I think he broke his ankle and part of his leg. So, yeah, he's going to be out until next season. Shit, might not even start the beginning of next season. It just sucks for him. But I know the 49ers have a higher floor now with Jimmy G. I don't know what their ultimate ceiling is because I haven't seen him win the Super Bowl yet. But their floor is a lot higher with Jimmy Garoppolo playing than Trey Lance, because we just didn't know what we were going to get out of Trey Lance, and we really didn't even get an opportunity to, because that first game was in the fucking mud. Was in the mud, literally. It was in the mud. So I can't even use that as evaluation. And he was hurt early on Sunday, so it just sucks for them. But yeah, 49ers definitely have a higher floor than they did previously, but they just gave up all that capital. They were just hoping that his ceiling would have been, Super Bowl, like someone who actually wins the Super Bowl on a perfect scenario on a rookie deal that could have added more. It just sucks for him and the 49ers, honestly.
And now every game that Jimmy G plays, if they win, he's going to get an extra $350,000, including on top of his regular base salary.
Unfortunately,
due to his restructuring.
Yeah, we need to see what the 49ers do just in case Jimmy G gets hurt, though, because that motherfucker be getting hurt too now.
That's true. But like people said, with quarterbacks getting hurt, everyone's like, oh, if a quarterback gets hurt, the 49ers will go trade Jimmy G. No one expected the 49ers to be the one whose quarterback got hurt. And they're like, now they look like geniuses because they re-signed Jimmy G. Because if they didn't have him, it'd be bad.
Yeah, it would be bad. But I ain't going to give them credit for keeping Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster when they clearly have stated for months now that they did not want him on the team.
Yeah.
So I ain't going to give John Lynch and Shanahan credit for that. They don't deserve credit for that, honestly.
Mitch and Chuck, who would you guys, each of you, have as your winner and loser of week 2? Like your top winner and your top loser.
Top winner, top loser. Probably the top of my head before I pull up all the games. Vegas. I think the Raiders had to be the top loser because, like what we had mentioned earlier, they had to lead, and like they had to lead, and then they just they just caved in the fourth quarter. And since I hold Arizona in such low regard, in my mind, that is the biggest loser. Biggest winner then probably, it's probably Miami. But I'm just going to kind of just maybe try to say something different and just say, probably the Cowboys. Probably the Cowboys were the biggest winner, just because you lose Dak for a few months, you put Cooper Rush in, and you started 0-1, and you pulled a win at home against a team that was just in the Super Bowl. So I mean, I probably have to give it to them for being the winners of the week. So,
Chuck,
my biggest loser, I'm gonna actually go with a team that no one probably really will see as the biggest loser, but I go with the Titans. After just being like you said, first in the first 1 seed last year, just coming back around and then just starting off 0-2. Derrick Henry, I understand he's hurt. He had time off, but it just looks so awkward out there with him running. He's getting smacked around like no other. And Tannehill looking like a goof troop right now, getting benched. And they're just getting clapped by the Buffalo Bills. I think they're the biggest loser, honestly, of that week, because they just look like they're in complete tear down mode and try and figure out what they need to do and get something else going for them. Biggest winner wise, I'm gonna definitely have to go with the Cowboys. As a Cowboys fan, it's kind of biased, but we needed that win. We had no Dak. Offense looked lackluster. Defense pulled it out of their ass and got us the win right there. We need that win, especially in this division. Every win really matters. And then going against a Super Bowl contending champion or Super Bowl contending team last year, that helps. So anything to show that we can stop their offense and that our defense is progressing is actually really big for us. So I think we're the biggest winners there. We'll see if we can turn it around, even with Dak out.
Justin?
Biggest winner, I will have to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Woo!
I mean, that was just a huge win. I mean, Jacksonville owns Indy at Jacksonville. Indy has not beaten them in 8 straight tries going to Jacksonville, and they're in first place right now in the AFC South. And currently, after 2 weeks on Football Outsiders, the Jacksonville Jaguars are ranked number 2 in total DVOA. Just awesome performance. Should have beat Washington in week 1, honestly. But they're just playing real well right now. Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson. I told you get that man an actual NFL coach, and sky's the limit. And then my biggest loser is the Bengals. The Bengals just totally fumbled the first 2 weeks of the season, 0-2. Still can't protect Joe Burrow, and it's not getting any easier for him. So those are my winners and losers.
Yeah, I mean, loser, I'm not hiding it. It was the Raiders for me. And winners was Miami, because you see in the NFL, in one game, your whole narrative can change. And Tua's narrative is slowly changing off of that one game. I do want to leave everyone with this as we close this football podcast. Obviously, Monday Night Football is the Giants and the Cowboys, who currently right now, I could have picked the Giants because they're 2-0 and no one expected them to be 2-0. Like that is surprising. And they're going against the 1-1 Dallas Cowboys. Monday Night Football, NFC East. The reason I'm going to just want to close with this is because I hate giving them credit, but the power of the Dallas Cowboys on TV is unmatched. I don't know if any of you three know, but when I was getting ready for this pod, the Bengals and the Cowboys did 27 million people. 27 million people.
Goddamn week, man. How many years have been telling you this?
27. This is the 27.39. I'm sorry, marking the largest week 2 NFL audience since 2000. And it is the highest, one of the highest ranked games that is non-Thanksgiving on CBS since the Chiefs Patriots Brady Mahomes game. 27.
Why were so many people watching that damn game?
Well, there's two things. This is what I want to end it on.
Love America's team.
I was going to say that's true. Dallas just draws people, but also the state of Ohio is a big football state.
Yeah.
So, but just think about that. The Cowboys, Cooper Rush, all of them, doesn't matter. 27 million people watch that game.
Martin, I want to kind of make a connection to another Monday night game since you brought all that stuff up. Do you happen to have the viewer ratings for Green Bay versus Chicago? Because honestly,
actually, I think
if you can get me those ratings, because I forget who I saw this.
They had 19.5 million. Also, 20 million if you count the streams, since it was on. You can see it on Peacock.
Like that. Like in terms of game quality, can we stop having Green Bay versus Chicago in prime time of some day? Because it is the same thing. It is Aaron Rodgers beating their ass double digits all the freaking time. It is like I would love to see Buffalo versus Miami in primetime Sunday night, but NBC has the Sunday night game and CBS has to play it at 1:00. And I won't be able to, Justin, unless you got Red Zone or you got some other package, we're not going to be able to see the Buffalo Miami game because it's on CBS at 1:00, and so is the Cincinnati game. So like I'm sitting here like pissed off, but I'm like, okay, why am I watching Green Bay versus Chicago when Chicago is they're just clowns against? But that's just me. We need to stop having Green Bay, Chicago prime time.
All of that is just like the TV deals and shit. And the Bears will always get primetime games against the Packers because that's the NFL's oldest rivalry, and Chicago is a major market in this country. So
well, that's the thing. That rivalry is a rivalry history-wise, but not recent history. Like heck, you can go back even to Favre. We know the stat line that Rodgers is 23-5 against the Bears in his career, but Favre was 23-13. So in the past, I don't know how many meetings it is at the top of my head, but I mean, Green Bay is 46 of 18 in their last however many meetings that is, 64 meetings, something like that. It's like, it's so predictable. It's like,
yeah. And if you're willing to, legally stream, then you can watch whatever game you want. And if you get like Game Pass and shit, you can pick different games other than your local game. So there's options, so you don't have to watch the Bengals if you don't want to. Because I certainly won't be watching them on Sunday.
mm-hmm.
One more stat too, just for the power of Cowboys. Because last year, the week 2 game was the Cowboys Chargers. That was 24.3. And then the Bengals and Cowboys 27.39. That's an increase of 3 million people.
That's wild.
But yeah, that's why Monday night, they're going to have a big number. And with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to L7C Podcast. Thank you, Mitch and Chuck, for making their debuts on NFL Pods. We'll be back in week 4, which would already be close to a month of the season done. Wow. Time will be flying and we'll know more. But with that being said, this is the L7C Podcast, signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C Podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.